Hello and welcome to our webinar. We're so glad you decided to join us. We're going to be discussing the Rural Revive and Reside Grant Program. My name is Mary Graff. I'm the Historic Incentive Support Specialist for both Utah Main Street and the Utah State Historic Preservation Office. And with me is my colleague Jansen, who will introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jansen Bennett. I'm the Preservation Architect on staff with Utah Main Street and the Utah State Historic Preservation Office. Thank you so much for joining us.
So first, the exciting news, round 4 of our application process. No, not our, let me start over. Okay. So the exciting news is that we have launched round 4 of the Rural Revive and Reside. Ugh. What is wrong with me? I did this so well the first time. Okay.
All good.
Okay. So the exciting news is that applications for round 4 of the Rural Revive and Reside Grant Program are currently being accepted. And the application deadline for that is September 18th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And we do have an optional feature, which is a really great opportunity. It's called our Early Staff Review for Completeness. And if you're feeling a bit unsure about your answers to questions or how to answer certain questions, you have the opportunity to upload your information to our website, and we'll take a look at what you have so far and give you some feedback. We can turn that around in a few days. And the deadline to get that information in is September 11th at 5 p.m.
So what is the Rural Revive and Reside Grant Program? It is a grant program run by Utah Main Street, and it's for owners and tenants of historic buildings located in Main Street districts, specifically Tier 2 Main Street districts. This grant will fund improvements to 2 types of interior spaces. First, ground floor commercial or income producing spaces, and upper floor housing. So second, third, fourth floor, anything above the ground floor.
So a bit of background about our Rural Revive and Reside Grant Program. The funds are actually coming from the National Park Service and the Paul Bruton subgrant. Initially, we were awarded $650,000, and we decided to dedicate that to our Utah Main Street communities for revitalization. And at this point, we have $90,000 of that remaining for this, our last round of the year. No, I'm going to start over.
Okay.
So a bit of background about this grant. Our Revive and Reside grant program is actually coming from a larger subgrant called the Paul Bruton subgrant, which is funded by the National Park Service. Initially, we were awarded $650,000, which we decided to earmark for our Utah Main Street communities. And at this point, we have $90,000 remaining that we'd like to award to our rural Tier 2 communities. We are limiting this grant to rural communities because that is a stipulation of the Paul Bruton subgrant. The definition of rural community is 50,000 residents or less. Because this is federal funding, it is subject to National Park Service oversight, and there is a match required for this fund. So we ask that matching funds not be federal funds unless you are using community development block grant funds.
So what kinds of projects are eligible? This grant is eligible for any interior rehabilitation work that results in ground floor commercial spaces and upper floor residential spaces. The main and primary objective of this grant is to activate underutilized spaces. So any project or building that isn't quite living up to its potential is really the key focus of this, especially vacant spaces, but really any building that is being underutilized. As far as commercial properties are concerned, any income producing business or function, or use is really the goal. So that includes boutiques, restaurants, shops, movie theaters, coffee shops, and bakeries are all eligible uses. There are also others that would also be considered eligible, but don't, like, I know we like to think of, you know, a very small Main Street business, or have a like particular like boutique or, you know, use in mind, but really it's any of those commercial uses that are eligible.
So what does funding look like? The maximum award you can request is $50,000. The minimum amount you can request is $25,000. As I mentioned previously, we require a 25% match, and that money must go directly to work, the project scope of work. You cannot use federal funds, as I mentioned before. In-kind contributions are allowed. And a little bit of a deep dive into the 25%, as an example, say you were awarded $50,000, then we would expect that you would contribute $12,500 to the project. So that would bring the total construction up to $62,500. And also very important to communicate to everybody is that this is a reimbursement grant fund. So the awardee will be doing the work and paying for the work up front. And then when the work is completed and has been reviewed by our office and approved, that's when the reimbursement will occur and we will distribute the funds. So who can apply? Property owners of historic buildings, and property owners can be individuals, they can be corporations, or they can be nonprofits. We only ask that corporations and nonprofits, whoever the individual is who is submitting the application, that they get a letter from their board of directors designating them as having the authority to apply for the project and to manage it. Historic buildings are defined as any building on the National Register and within the boundaries of our rural Tier 2 Utah Main Street historic districts. Why does that say historic district?
I don't know. I was just wondering that too.
Okay. I'll start over.
Change that and we can start over on that slide. I'm also must be listed on the National Register of Historic Places and located. All right, I feel like that's clearer. Do you feel okay about that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So who can apply? Property owners of historic buildings, and property owners can be individuals, they can be corporations, or they can be nonprofits. We only ask that if it is a corporation or a nonprofit that is applying, the person that is applying for the grant get approval and a letter from their board of directors giving them authority to work on behalf of that organization. The historic building has to be listed on the National Register, and it has to be located within the boundaries of the rural Tier 2 Main Street community. Also, the grant is open to tenants of historic buildings. So if you are leasing space from a property owner, you are able to apply for this grant as long as you communicate your plans with the property owner and get a signature from the property owner. We just want to make sure that they know what your plans are and what you plan to do with the space that you've been leasing, and that they're okay with that sort of construction.
Great. So currently, the following Tier 2 Utah Main Street communities can apply. They meet both of the requirements of being a Tier 2 Utah Main Street community, as well as being under the federally designated population limit of 50,000. So that includes Brigham City, Cedar City, Heber, Helper, Monroe, Mount Pleasant, Parowan, Payson, Price, Tooele, and Vernal. So if you own or are a tenant of a historic building within one of these communities, you are eligible to apply. I would also like to introduce a tool that can help you to make sure that you qualify for the work. So this is the SHPO Hub. That stands for Historic Utah Buildings. And I'll walk you through that shortly. You can access this tool by following this link, or you are welcome to check with our National Register and Survey Coordinator. His name is Jansen, and his contact information is shown on screen. All right, so when you follow the link to get to the SHPO Hub, this is what you will see. And so you can, sorry, I'm going to start over. Right, when you follow that link to the SHPO Hub, this is really going to be the easiest tool to use to determine whether your individual building is eligible for the grant. So using this tool, you can determine whether the building is located within Utah Main Street District, as well as whether your building contributes to the National Register of Historic Places. So when you get there, this is what you will see, and you can go ahead and hit OK. And then the easiest way to find your individual building is to come up here and type in the name of your community. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and select Payson. And so if you type in your community, you can either select it here or just hit enter, and that will take you to Payson or your community. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, and that will help us see what information is available. So okay. So here, once you're zoomed in, you will see that there is this big yellow dot, yellow shaded area. That is a historic district on the National Register of Historic Places. So that's helpful information, but won't quite tell you all the information you need. To access all of the information, you will come up here to the layer list. And here you'll see that we have address points selected, as well as the historic Utah buildings. But we also want to see the Main Street boundaries. So if you select that, you'll see a blue shape pop up on the map, and we can go ahead and close this. Now, I'm going to zoom in, and that will provide the added layer of information that we need. So if you zoom in until these fancy dots appear, these are the dots that will help you determine whether your individual building is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So each of these dots is either red or green or sometimes gray. I'm not seeing many gray dots here. Red typically means that it is not eligible for listing on the National Register. Green indicates that it is eligible for listing on the National Register, and gray means that that a determination hasn't been made. We don't know one way or another, and you would need to contact our office to discuss and see about that. If you zoom in and select on one of these dots, I'm going to choose a green dot within the Main Street boundaries. And so selecting here, you'll see that there are 4 different things you can look at. So right now it's showing the Utah Main Street community boundary. If you go through, that is showing the historic district and information pertaining to that. And then finally, I'm seeing the individual property information for that dot. And the things you'll want to look for are really these items. So you can see the evaluation was that this property is eligible and contributing to the historic district. And you can also see on the National Register status that it is listed in the National Register district. Under the National Register status, commonly it will be either listed in a district, listed independently as an individual building, or it will be not listed in the National Register. To be eligible for this grant, a property must be within the Main Street District boundaries, as well as listed on the National Register.
So what is needed for this application? I highly recommend that you go on our website and take a look at the application packet and read through the grant program guidelines from start to finish. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at the State Historic Preservation Office. We'd be happy to answer questions, walk you through the process, and get you ready to get your application ready. And read through the application form and make sure that you understand everything that's being asked of you. Probably the first step you want to do when you're filling out the application is to create a unique entity identifier name, which I'll go over in the next slide. If you don't have that number already, you want to confirm the status of your building, that it's on the National Register, whether individually or as part of an historic district. You want to create a map that clearly indicates where the Main Street District is located and then the location of your property within that district. We'd like to see floor plans of the building and specifically the areas you plan to work on. We'd like to see photos of the building, of the exterior of the building, the interior of the building, and then specifically the area, again, that you really would like to focus on. We'd love to see historic photos of the building if they're available. And also we'd like to see drawings or renderings of the interior that would illustrate what kind of revitalization you plan to do. We also would like you to use the budget template that we've created to itemize all of your costs. And I'll be going into that a little more in the next few slides. And lastly, attach a letter of support from your Main Street Program Director. That, along with getting your UEI, should probably be the first step in the process, reaching out to that person, explaining what you'd like to do, and then requesting that you get a letter that you submit with your application. So EIN and UEI. Unique entity identifier, because these funds are from the federal government, you are required to have this number in order to accept these funds. And to get that number, you have to go on sam.gov, and you'll see that you have two options. You can submit a request just to get the unique entity identifier, or go through a more in-depth process where you're actually registering your business. And as part of that process, you're getting that number. So you'll have to read through the literature and see which is best for your specific project in your business. But we've provided all the links that you need to get that number. And we also have some really handy PDFs on our website that walk you step by step through the process, so that you do it accurately and you get the number as soon as possible. And here's our budget template. This is what we are requesting you use to itemize all of your expenses. We just want to see the kind of work you're doing and the cost of that work, and that it's itemized and broken out by what the grant is covering and then what matching funds are covering. And this is a really handy tool because it automatically starts calculating the amount of money that you're spending on the project. I will say that if you use a different type of budget template and apply that to your application, you run the risk of being ineligible. So definitely use this budget template as part of your application.
Mm-hmm. One other thing to note here is that we don't expect you to kind of necessarily have everything down to, the last penny. We understand that these are preliminary costs and that the final costs may change, but this is very helpful for us to know how you are looking to spend the grant funds as well as provide the required match. So projects will have approximately 1 year for all of the construction and to complete and deliver all of the required documentation. As we are meeting with projects that have been selected for preliminary approval, we will outline a specific timeline with each individual property owner or tenant of a historic building and detail that in the grant contract. To give you a little bit of an idea of our timeline, so applications are currently open through September 18th, and we do have that optional early review deadline of September 11th if you would like to just make sure that you are providing all of the required information. Once applications close, we will continue to review and award grants in mid-September to mid-October. And then in mid to late October, we will conduct site visits as well as submit documentation to the National Park Service for their technical review and approval of the project. And then once we have received that approval in early November, you will be able to begin construction once a contract is in place.
So what strings are attached to this grant? We ask that each awardee of the grant submit monthly status updates, and this is just a brief description of what you've been working on during the month, what you've accomplished. We'd like to see some photos of the work being done. And we also ask that awardees submit a biannual reports on their work that is a little more in depth. Secondly, all of that work needs to meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And that's why the site visits are so important when Jansen comes out to your building, because he will be walking through the building with you and taking a look at your project and what your plans are and making suggestions if things aren't meeting those standards, suggestions for how you might be able to, slightly tweak the project. And lastly, we ask that you enter into a preservation agreement with a term of at least 5 years. And this is just indicating that you will not make any changes to the building that would alter the character defining features that make it eligible for the National Register.
So if you're interested, here are your next steps. So first, read through our grant website. That is most easily accessible if you just do a quick search for Utah Revive and Reside Grant. That will take you directly to the webpage with all of the information. You could also go to our kind of parent webpage, which is ushpo.utah.gov. That will take you to the State Historic Preservation Office website, where you can then navigate down to the Utah Main Street website and the grant website. Once or available on the website is also the application packet, which provides a lot of information as well as detailed steps to walk you through gathering all of the required materials as well as submitting the application. During that process, feel free to contact us with any questions and or request a site visit. Those site visits will be kind of conducted as time allows. Just due to schedule, I will probably not be able to come to all of the interested projects before September 18th, but we will at very least be able to set up a time to discuss your project and walk you through any of the questions or concerns you may have. And finally, please submit your application and materials by the deadline, and we will go from there.
So finally, our contact information, we have it listed here. Again, I'm the Historic Center. Again, start over. Okay. And finally, our contact information. Again, I am the Historic Incentive Support Specialist. Jansen is our preservation architect. And also we have Chelsea Gauthier, who is our Utah Main Street program manager. All three of us would be happy to help you field questions and help you as you navigate your way through this process.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing from you and to seeing your application.